In 2004, a video was found on the deep web which caused quite a stir on various user forums at the time. The website itself took an incredibly long time to load, as many sites accessed through Tor notoriously did and still do. The background of the site was simply white, and there were 4 videos titled, listed one beneath the other without any thumbnails. These videos were downloadable and were simply titled Farm 1, Farm 2, Farm 3, and farm4.avi. The videos were said to contain malicious software that would make it impossible to close the program used to open the file. It was reported that the video would continue to loop without stopping if opened. There are various reports about each of the different videos, but amidst the different reports there was a universal agreement that the videos were, well, very disturbing, to say the least. The first video, titled farm1.avi, had an old camera placed in the corner of what appeared to be some kind of factory farm with a dimly lit interior. The video was 3 minutes long and of very poor quality. It just showed pigs wandering around in the dark. In the background there appeared to be several people standing against the furthest wall of the large enclosure, but due to the poor quality of the video, it was difficult to make out any defining features. There was no audio attached to this video. In farm2.avi, a South African flag is visibly hung from one of the walls. The quality was marginally better this time, with some limited audio that consisted of a loud humming sound. Pigs were reportedly wandering around in circles within their pens. The video lasted for around 4 minutes this time, and during the last 30 seconds of the video, the pigs appear to panic and swarm in a circle as if something had startled them. A large object could be faintly seen landing in the pen, but was nearly impossible to identify. Farm3.avi and farm4.avi were the most disturbing of the videos. Farm 3 lasted for around 4 minutes and Farm 4 lasted for around 10. The camera seemed to have moved into a smaller tiled area that resembled a public restroom with various brown stains on the walls and the floor. In the room were 3 slaughtered pigs that were spread across the floor, their heads dismembered. The camera was placed at foot level for this video. Someone in Wellington boots can be seen walking in front of the camera encircling the 3 corpses. It appeared at first that these pigs were dead. However, the corpses appeared to be sewn shut along each of their underbellies with visible stitching. Although the audio was obscured by the humming sound from the previous video, muffled noises could be heard along with visible twitching from within the bellies of the pigs. Towards the end of the video, there appeared to be something resembling the foot of a child stepping into the room. But again, this is difficult to see, and the video stops as the man kicks the underbelly of one of the twitching pigs. The final video, farm4.avi, was the most disturbing of the series. There are several naked figures lined across a wall with dismembered pig heads forced over their own. These were presumably from the bodies of the pigs in farm3.avi. It was claimed that 2 men and 1 woman were chained to the far wall from the first room. They were described as visibly shaking and appeared to be frantically moving their heads from side to side as if trying to remove the animals' heads from their own. Again, there are muffled noises allegedly coming from behind the pig heads, and the victims are described as having various cuts and bruises across their arms, thighs, and even some form of a brand on each of their chests. It was disgusting. In the case of the woman, it appeared to have been directly placed at the center of her right breast. The scene cuts out for a brief moment, and the camera has been moved to foot height once more at the entrance of one of the pens. The captives are on their hands and knees looking towards the camera. They remain still until prompted to move by the man who wore the Wellington boots. He appears to be yelling at them and violently pointing towards the adjacent room from Farm 3, but there was no audio in the segment of the video. His face is impossible to see due to the poor quality of the video and the cap over his head. The camera cuts out for a brief moment, and the victims are now stood in the pig pen and appear to be dancing and waving their arms in the air while it's directly looking down at the camera. The camera cuts out again, and the victims are said to have been continuously crawling around in a circle on their hands and knees, similar to the pigs seen in Farm2.avi. There is another cut, and the two men are now standing in the pen whilst the woman remains on her hands and knees looking down towards the floor. The man from Farm3.avi then appears to be pointing at the two men and the woman with frenzied motions. The two men appear reluctant to comply with the man until he starts pointing at the adjoining room once more, presumably from Farm 3. The men then reluctantly begin to touch their privates, and one can only speculate what happens next. The video cuts for the final time, and the trio are crawling into a circle once more. Eventually the woman stops and appears to break down, crying. The two men also stop and appear to try and comfort her by patting her on the back and attempting to whisper, although all that can be seen are the pig heads moving closer towards hers. The man from Farm 3 then comes over and starts frantically pointing at the adjoining room once more. The victims seem to panic and start moving with urgency and desperation. The man from Farm 3 disappears into the adjoining room for a moment and brings out the headless corpse of one of the pigs. He takes out a butcher's knife and begins to repeatedly stab the underbelly of the pig. A muffled scream can be clearly heard over the humming audio. This came directly from the female victim as she and the other two men desperately try to climb over the pen towards the man. The video then abruptly ends before repeating itself once more. Allegedly, the SAPS were informed of the videos, and many different farms across the region were checked for any possible evidence of the activities shown in the videos. There were no special characteristics which could point to the building, as the architecture was common. Due to the annual number of missing people in the region and limited resources, the case was essentially closed and labeled as an elaborate hoax. The videos and Onion link are rumored to still be around to this day. Number 2. I can't disclose much information, but I work for the UK government. I was assigned to track down several missing people who were spotted on what is known as the Deep Web. I had briefly heard of this place before, but some research was required before I went in. It is a place where criminals can be safe. Contract killers, live stream murders, child pornographers, the darkest depths of the internet. Time to get to it. I fired up my PC and downloaded the Tor browser. No problems. Installed it up and running in a matter of moments. Due to my prior research, I knew the hidden wiki would lead me to find some sites I needed. The missing people had been spotted on a live stream torture site. This is where I started. And what I found was just so many horrific acts. I saw one where someone captured a homeless man, and the director presumably was commenting on what they wanted done to him. He had his eyes gouged out, face cut and skinned, alive. On with this search. I was looking for a white male, brown hair, blue eyes, around 6 feet and 195 pounds, or 183 cm and 88 kgs for people like me in the UK. This was not going to be a pleasant experience. I counted 23 people, if not more, being tortured, raped, mutilated, and brutally murdered in front of the camera, until I found one which stood out. White male, brown hair, around 6 feet, who looked about 195 pounds. I had to endure watching him tortured and killed for 47 painful and horrendous minutes. After the murder, something even worse happened. I saw that the murderer cut open his chest and spread his ribs and lungs out like a bird. I'd seen this before. The Blood Eagle. The Blood Eagle was once used to kill a king who killed someone's father. Originated in Nordic civilizations, the details weren't important now. What was important was the fact that the Blood Eagle cult could be back. A group of contract killers who operated anywhere and everywhere, always sacrificing people to the eagle, which they called God. Someone has to put a stop to this. I didn't have the resources, I didn't have the training to take down a criminal organization by myself. I didn't even have any solid evidence to take to my superiors, no proof of the Blood Eagles even existing. Just one sick and twisted video I found on the internet. I needed a break to return to normality. I closed down the browser after exiting the site. Something was very wrong. My desktop background. It wasn't the picture I cherished of me graduating from the Sandhurst with my proud uniform and family. It was something which could forever change me. A picture of a corpse with his ribs spread open and his lungs on display. A blood eagle. I couldn't take it anymore. I gasped and powered down my computer. A virus? It has to be a virus used to scare the sickos who watch those things, right? I ran out of my office, but I heard my computer coming back to life. Dashing back into the room, I stared in horror at the monitor. No blood, no gore, just some words. My name, and then the words, "The eye of the eagle sees all." How did they remotely turn on my computer? How the fuck do they know my name? I ran outside, grabbing my keys, wallet, phone, everything. I quickly took a breath of fresh air and walked. I just walked for a while. In the real world. It was just a computer virus. Right? Wrong. I couldn't be out too long. My wife could be coming home from work. She can wait. I was scared. For once I was truly scared, terrified, you could say. I found myself sitting on a bench, talking to a nice old man about the weather and woodworking tips and other hobbies. I forgot about everything that had happened until I went home. My door was unlocked, a little bit open, which was strange. Jenny, my wife, always keeps the door locked. I opened and bellowed upstairs. "Sorry, love, I took a walk. I needed a breather." I ran upstairs to see her, not noticing the blood on the walls. I opened the bedroom door. The whole room was red, soaked with blood. What I can only hope wasn't Jenny's face was slashed up beyond all recognition and her throat was slit multiple times. I've seen dead before, but nothing close to this. I stared in horror. The wings, her lungs spread out over her ribs. The blood eagle. What the fuck? How the fuck? My flood of anger and fear and overwhelming misery was interrupted by a voice. It said my name, although heavily distorted. It came from my office. It came from my computer. I saw the face of a black and white mask, yet still slightly pixelated. I screamed, "What have you done? Who are you? What the fuck are you?" He replied with, "We." He said, "We are the blood eagle. We kill as he wishes. Do not stop us. Do not try. Do not search us, or you and your closest family member will suffer. The eagle sees all and can do terrible things." I was speechless and feeling like I brought this upon her. I wanted nothing to do with this anymore. I made a decision. I rung the police, told them what had happened. They investigated. They said it was a suicide. I couldn't believe it. Weeks passed. I was haunted by this event. I booked a flight to Canada. We had a nice little log cabin there. I packed almost everything I had, my trusty shotgun, clothes, all my cash and Canadian dollars. I left my life behind, quit my job. I never wanted to go back to the deep web, or have anything to hear from it. Now, I keep to myself and live a relatively simple life. Therapy helped me recover. I'm happy now. Years have passed. I feel safe. Almost. However, let this be a lesson to everyone. The eagle sees all. Want to look into them? Want to stop them? Fine by me. I'm not paying for your funeral or the guy reassembling your mangled corpse. Number 3. I had been struggling with depression for the majority of my life, keeping it to myself for the most part. I loved the peacefulness of isolation, although my parents never seemed to understand it, wanting me to go outside more and talk to people. If, however, they did, then they just didn't approve of my antisocial tendencies, even though I wasn't suicidal. You see, there is a big difference between being depressed and feeling nothing, as depression is extremely hard to ignore and it just chips away at you over time, whereas lack of feeling makes life just fade past, mixing your memories into a blur. One day, I just had to feel something, so I started going on the deep web, looking up the most fucked up things I could find. Whenever I read stories about the deep web, the victim was always fucked over by some random crafty psycho finding out where they lived, but that wasn't the case for me. That wasn't what screwed me over. The only reason I even started going on the deep web was to try and feel something, even if that something was shock, disgust, horror, or anything like that. I just wanted a fresh memory of what it was like to feel something. I did some really shady shit online, so I made sure to use a VPN at all times. However, it wasn't a computer issue that fucked me over. It was my stupid fucking brain zoning out, unable to hear my father closing the front door as he came in. He usually just sits down at his desk when he gets home from work, but this time he barged into my room without knocking to hand me a letter from the bank, a statement, but that's not important. I was currently streaming a fucking snuff film live as he walked in, and all he could do was just watch. He dropped the letter, marched over to my desk, and unplugged my PC, snatching it and throwing it out the fucking window onto the stone slab patio in the back garden. He stared at me, half furious, half ashamed that his son had been watching shit like that. It was then that he put me in therapy, and at that point in my life I came to a crossroads. Should I just kill myself in order to avoid any more shame, or should I go and seek help? To be honest, in hindsight, I think I made the wrong decision, but it's the one that puts me here, writing this. Week 5 of therapy, and my therapist can't fully understand me. Although he thinks he can help my emptiness, he prescribes me some antidepressants and tells me I should take up a hobby. Week 11, we've gone over more deeply rooted issues, but I have not told him about the live streams yet. Week 13, and I finally build up the courage to finally tell him. After all, there is such a thing as patient confidentiality, right? He is shocked at what I tell him and prescribes me some stronger meds, which are, to be honest, just fucking great. A little later, and I found out I could take them with some DPH for a really great time. Although, the hallucinations caused many more problems for me. Still, I was feeling something at least. At first it was a spider that I saw when taking DPH, then it became a couple. The more I abused the medicine, the worse the hallucinations were. I hadn't had this much fun in a very long time. I started seeing things walk around at the very edge of my vision, always in the blurred area. If I turned to look at it, it would either disappear or move around. Until one day, I turned to look at it, and it just stayed there, as if it had just been playing a game and was now tired of the game. All it was the silhouette of a woman, rather tall and very, very skinny. I freaked the fuck out. My mother rushes in and embraces me, unable to see what I see. I am still hallucinating, and my mom thinks it is just the medication from my therapist. She has no idea that I am abusing DPH. I stay up for hours, my mother staying by my side the whole time, and I finally go to sleep after the drugs wore off. I sleep a lot easier, realizing it was merely a hallucination. Skip ahead about a week or so, my mental health is spiraling, and I have been abusing my medication a lot more than the week before. As I am going to sleep, I hear whispers and look up. It's that silhouette again. My heart rate skyrockets, but I quickly remember that she's just a hallucination, nothing more. I try to play the game with her, but she just doesn't move out of sight. I try to go to sleep, still soaking wet from the cold sweat I broke into when I first woke up, and I see the silhouette wander out of my door across the hall to my parents' room. I go back to sleep, ignoring the muffled screams that I usually hear when on DPH, but then at about 5:36 a.m., I wake up trembling, gasping for air, and remembering something that sunk my heart into my stomach. I haven't been able to get my filthy addict hands on DPH for a few days now. I panic, scrambling for the light, and see the door of my parents' room is wide open, unusual as they usually both get up for work at around this time. I rush to look in and make sure everything is alright. Just my hyperactive imagination in the panicked state I was in. Nothing could have prepared me for the horrors which are still fresh in my thoughts. My mother's head and torso were hanging by a noose from the pull-up bar in their room, and my father was lying on the blood-soaked bed, decapitated with an extremely bloated and full stomach. probably burst internally. I vomit, and I fall to my knees, trembling and sobbing, just imagining or more knowing what was in my father's stomach. I turn around to look into the hallway to scream for help, and I see her walking away. I scream at the silhouette, but she ignores me, continuing her calm, slumped walk down the corridor to the right. All that was left was me, my parents, and the 4 law officers running through the door. My fingerprints had been found on one of my mother's larger kitchen knives found at the end of the corridor. A combination of my inability to recollect killing them and my previous history of mental health issues, I was declared criminally insane, and instead of being put to a maximum security prison, I was sent to a mental health institute and put under close watch. After a while, they let me stay in a slightly more homely cell, and I wasn't forced to wear a straitjacket once they started giving me sedatives. I am now hiding up on the roof, just waiting for the guards to burst through the door and use their fucking drugs to make me a husk again. I shanked a guard in order to get up here, and I'm writing this in my leather journal that my psychiatrist had given me to vent even outside appointment hours. I now am given a choice: to step up on the ledge and avoid a lifetime of an even deeper abyss of a shell which would be my consciousness, or to accept it and just hope that one day I would have closure. That one day I would see the silhouette and be able to ask every single question on my mind. So much left unanswered. So much left to ask.